Legendary actor, director Robert Redford has died at the age of 89. Family representative says he died in Provo. Now, Redford was not only a fixture in Hollywood, of course, but was vital to the film scene here in Utah.
To the world, the news may sound simple, an icon reaching the end of a long journey. But those closest to him knew there was more behind this farewell. In his final years, Redford carried struggles and truths that few outside his inner circle ever saw. And as we uncover the last chapter of his story, a shocking revelation about what really weighed on him finally comes to light. On September 16, 2025, the world received the news that Robert Redford had passed away. His longtime publicist, Cindy Berger, confirmed the legendary actor, director, and founder of Sundance died peacefully at the age of 89. The place of his passing carried as much meaning as the announcement itself. Redford's final moments unfolded not on a Hollywood stage or in a bustling Los Angeles hospital, but in the stillness of his Utah home, land he had chosen decades ago as his sanctuary from the noise of fame. For many, it felt like the most fitting of farewells. The reaction was immediate. Fans flooded social media with memories of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting. Filmmakers paid tribute to the man who gave independent cinema its beating heart. Newspapers ran long retrospectives that captured his unmatched career, his Oscar-winning turn behind the camera, and the way he built Sundance into a global force. Yet beneath all the glowing headlines, there was something else, a quieter question that lingered. Why did the announcement feel so restrained? Why did it offer so little beyond the bare fact of his passing? To those who had seen Redford in recent years, the answer was not simple. There were private struggles hidden from the spotlight that shaped the way his final days unfolded. And soon, those struggles would become impossible to ignore. Just months before his passing, Robert Redford made one last, unexpected appearance on screen. In March 2025, viewers of AMC's Dark Winds were stunned to see the Hollywood legend sitting across a chessboard in a jail cell, trading moves with none other than George R.R. Martin. The cameo lasted only moments, but it carried a weight that went far beyond its brevity. For fans who believed Redford had retired for good after The Old Man and the Gun in 2018, this quiet return felt almost like a secret message, a wave from a man who knew the curtain was closing. What made the moment more powerful was its secrecy. Redford never promoted the appearance, never spoke publicly about it. There was no red carpet premiere or late-night interview. Instead, it slipped quietly into the episode, waiting to be discovered. Looking back now, the scene feels less like a performance and more like a signature at the bottom of a painting, a final nod to the audience that had carried him for more than 6 decades. And yet, behind the smile that flickered across the screen, there was something else. Observers who knew Redford personally said his health had slowed him in recent years. The cameo was a gift, but also a reminder that his days of moving effortlessly across the screen were behind him. What fans saw as a pleasant surprise may, in truth, have been his carefully chosen goodbye. For decades, Robert Redford was the picture of vitality. Whether galloping across Western plains as the Sundance Kid or standing tall as the fearless journalist in All the President's Men, he seemed almost untouchable. But in the years leading up to his passing, those closest to him noticed subtle changes. His public appearances grew rare, his once energetic gait slowed, and interviews became fewer and far between. When he did step into the spotlight, it was often for causes close to his heart rather than the bright glare of Hollywood premieres. This retreat wasn't just about age. Friends hinted at a man who carried more than the natural weight of years. Though Redford kept his struggles private, there was a quiet heaviness about him, a sense that his battles weren't entirely physical. Even the cameo on Dark Winds, lighthearted on its surface, left some longtime admirers remarking how frail he seemed compared to the vibrant figure etched in cinematic history. Outwardly, he handled it with the same grace that had defined him for over 60 years. But whispers of his decline circulated quietly, raising questions that his family never sought to answer publicly. Behind the carefully controlled appearances was a deeper story, one that would soon reveal itself as the most haunting truth of his final days. The shocking truth behind Robert Redford's final days was not revealed in a medical report or a dramatic statement. It lived in something far more personal, the burden of grief. Redford knew triumph on the grandest stage, but he also endured heartbreak most parents could never imagine. In 1959, he and his first wife, Lola, lost their infant son, Scott. He rarely spoke of it, but those close to him knew the loss marked him forever. Decades later, in 2020, his son James, known as Jamie, passed away at 58 after a lifelong struggle with health issues, including 2 liver transplants. That second loss struck Redford like a blow that never healed. Friends said he seemed changed afterward, more withdrawn, quieter, carrying a sadness that never left his eyes. And though no doctor ever linked it officially, those who knew him believed the weight of that grief took a toll on his health in the years that followed. Redford was a man who fought battles silently, but grief is a fight that lingers. It shadows the body, weakens resolve, and makes every step heavier. In the end, his final years were not just about growing old. They were about carrying the unbearable weight of losing 2 sons, and how that pain quietly shaped the last chapter of his life. In the aftermath of such profound loss, Robert Redford turned toward the 2 things that had always steadied him: art and nature. With his wife, the German-born artist Sibylle Sagers Redford, he poured his energy into The Way of the Rain, a multimedia performance blending painting, film, music, and Redford's narration. It was more than a project. It was an act of devotion. To audiences, it was a moving tribute to the planet. To Redford, it was also a form of healing, a way to transform grief into creation. He had long found refuge in the landscapes of the American West. By his final years, Redford spent most of his time in Santa Fe and on the quiet land around Sundance in Utah. Here, away from the relentless noise of Hollywood, he sketched, read, and walked under wide skies. With Sibylle, he built a rhythm of life rooted in silence and renewal, far from the scrutiny of flashing cameras. Yet even in this piece, the scars of grief remained. Those who visited described a man still sharp in mind, still committed to art and advocacy, but moving slower, speaking softer, as though carrying an invisible weight. For Redford, the mountains were not escape. They were sanctuary, the only place large enough to hold his sorrow. If Robert Redford had only been a movie star, his legacy would still be secure. But what truly set him apart was his vision for something bigger than himself. In 1981, he founded the Sundance Institute and Festival, determined to give independent filmmakers a stage that Hollywood would not. Over the decades, Sundance grew from a modest gathering in Utah into one of the most influential film festivals in the world. It became the launchpad for careers, the birthplace of new voices, and a symbol of artistic rebellion against commercial formulas. Yet even as he aged, Redford remained protective of the flame he lit. Friends recall him worrying that Sundance had grown too large, too commercialized, straying from the purity of its original mission. It wasn't bitterness, it was the concern of a father, watching his child drift from its roots. He spoke often about keeping the focus on artists, not corporations, and urged younger generations to remember that Sundance began as a fragile dream. In his final years, Redford's health may have slowed him, but his vigilance never wavered. Behind closed doors, he still lent his voice, his guidance, and his watchful eye. For him, Sundance wasn't a brand, it was a promise. And until the very end, he guarded it as fiercely as he had guarded his own privacy. To the world, Robert Redford was more than an actor. He was a symbol of a golden era in Hollywood. His face became iconic in roles that defined a generation. The charming outlaw in Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid, 1969. The smooth con artist in The Sting, 1973. The relentless journalist Bob Woodward in All the President's Men, 1976. And the romantic lead in Out of Africa, 1985. Each character carried a mix of charisma and depth, and audiences came to see him as the thinking man's star, handsome yet serious, magnetic yet understated. But Redford wasn't content with being just a face on the screen. In 1980, he stepped behind the camera to direct Ordinary People, a devastatingly intimate story of family grief. The film stunned critics and won him the Academy Award for Best Director, silencing anyone who doubted his artistry. It was a turning point that revealed the breadth of his talent and his determination to control the stories he told. Beyond the spotlight, Redford became an advocate for independent voices, for the environment, and for truth in storytelling. His body of work is staggering, but his true legacy lies in how he used his fame to elevate others. In life and in art, he insisted that cinema should not only entertain, but matter. The news of Robert Redford's passing sparked an immediate wave of tributes from every corner of the world. Fellow actors described him as a mentor and a friend, someone who carried himself with rare humility despite his legendary status. Directors and screenwriters credited him with giving their first films a chance at Sundance, recalling how his belief in new voices changed the trajectory of their careers. Fans filled social media with movie clips, favorite quotes, and personal reflections on how his work shaped their lives. In Utah, where Sundance transformed Park City into a hub for global cinema, officials lowered flags and spoke of him not just as a film icon, but as a figure who gave the state cultural weight on the international stage. In Hollywood, retrospectives ran instantly on every major network, replaying the moments that defined him. Butch and Sundance, riding into legend, the fiery newsroom of all the president's men, the quiet devastation of ordinary people. Yet beyond the applause and the headlines, there was a deeper note of recognition. People sensed that Redford's story was not only about fame or art, it was about resilience, loss, and endurance. And in those tributes, the world began to grasp the hidden struggles that had marked his final days, making his quiet exit all the more poignant. Robert Redford's passing at 89 marks the end of a chapter in Hollywood that will never be repeated. To audiences, he was the Sundance Kid, the golden boy of American cinema, and the champion of independent film. But the shocking truth behind his death reminds us that legends are still human. Redford carried the grief of losing two sons, a weight that shadowed his final years and shaped the quiet man he became in the end. He found solace in art, in nature, and in the love of his family. But the scars of loss never left him. His story is one of triumph and tragedy, resilience and sorrow. Drop a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more forgotten Hollywood tales.